go ahead, Tommy.
Okay, my name is Tom Luzader. I was born and raised in Gilmer County. I went to school, high school here. During maybe the 7th, 9th, and 10th grade, when we were in school, all the tomorrow was in Europe, and eventually Hitler was taking over country after country, and we were not really told that we would be involved, but it was almost understood that we would eventually must be involved in it or else. So in
41.
we was working at
1941.
yeah,
Or
39,
42.
39 when we was in school.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when we eventually knew that eventually we'd be involved in the war. I was working at Winter Martin's in Baltimore when war broke out, when Pearl Harbor was bombed in 1941. From there I went into the Navy. I had 4 weeks training in Great Lakes, Illinois. We were shipped from there to St. Louis down to Miami, Florida to what then was a subchaser school. It was more or less just clearing the sea lanes for the convoys out of detecting whether the submarines were operating in that district or not. From there, we was doing convoy duty from around through the Gulf, from Galveston, Texas, back into Miami, and from Miami on down to Panama and through the locks and back into the Pacific. We was really not didn't do too much duty in Cape Hatteras. We had to wait till it was pretty calm because our boat was only 63 feet long, so and there was about 23 people aboard, so it wasn't too seaworthy. We had one destroyer sank in Cape Hatteras during the hurricane they was having, so from then on they didn't let us venture too far out. We don't know whether we could do a lot of help if submarines came up on us or not, but we always had good contact airplanes from the shore, and they would come out help us in spotting and their own discharges. From there, I was transferred to Panama, and I served there and on the base for the last 6 months of my service. So I was there, and I served in there as a commissary officer in the mess in Panama for the last 6 months, and then I was discharged and came home.
Well, Tommy, what was life like before the war?
Well, then most of us lived in the country. We walked to school, and a little joke about a kid, his grandfather telling a little girl about how far he had to walk to school, and one time they was in a living room, and this little girl jumped up real quick. Her mother was in the kitchen washing dishes, and the little girl jumped up too quick and took her doll and went into her own room to play. And her mother went in and said, "Daughter," said, "I thought you loved to talk to your grandfather." And she said, "Mom, I do." Said, "But every time he tells me how far he had to walk to school, he always hands them off." So it really wasn't, we really did walk. Some of us walked 1.5 miles to 2 miles, and anytime you walked over 2 miles to school, you got 10 cents a mile for walking during that school year. Okay.
So, did you smoke cigarettes?
Now do what?
Smoke cigarettes?
Yes, I smoked cigarettes. We could buy cigarettes for, I think it was around 7 cents a pack aboard the ships. I came home on an emergency room, and I put 7 packs of cigarettes in the bottom of my suitcase, and it didn't take long to find him, and he just looked at me and laughed and put my clothes back in the suitcase and let me come on home with them. It's 5220?
Yeah,
Okay.
did you?
I did draw the 5220. I drew my mustering out pay was the $500, and then they give us a training period and give us $90 a month to train for a job, and I worked for the RB Store Company for 6-7 months on that. And then I worked in Cleveland, or Larry. I worked up there for about a year, and I came home and married one of the Moyers and started working for the Gilmer Utility and worked for the Gilmer Utility until I think it was about 1971, and then I was back up a little bit. I went in emergency services, the fire department. I joined them in 1947 and 47, and then in 51 I was fire chief. When I was made fire chief in about 1950, I think 51, I think, and then 19 was fire chief until 1971. I started, and I was took my EMT course, medical service, and then up until 1971, until worked for them until about 1985, and I retired, and here I am. Okay, what else?
Tommy, did you have a special job?
Yeah, I was a Navy cook.
Mm-hmm. Did you get a chance to read too many books?
Yeah, we had a few books aboard. There was not too many. There was smoking lights lit when we tell us when it could smoke. There was lights out when the ship had to be fully dark, and then of course you could always stay below deck, but there was never hardly any room below deck because the lights were so dim you couldn't read. I think I read Gone with the Wind and A Tree Grew in Brooklyn and A Strange Woman, and no, that's just three of the ones I remembered I read. Yeah, we read, and one thing about it was everybody aboard ship read the same book. Eventually it went through all hands and everybody read the book. It was rather interesting in a way. You don't regret anything that happened, but I don't think you'd ever volunteer to do it over.
Did you have any moments where you felt fear?
What, I did what?
Fear.
I don't think, not really. They would instill, they had ways to instill your frame of mind that you could go work your battle stations, you could go back, you could run fire your gate guns or your 50 calibers or your 40-40s, or you could do anything like that, and you could go right back and go to bed and never think nothing about it. They had ways to, I don't know how they did it. And I was talking to one of my friends down the street the other day, and he said, Dale, he always instilled his people shoot them, to shoot to kill, not to shoot, because if you didn't shoot to kill, they'd kill you. And they had ways that they would, I don't know, they could train you to where you did whatever they said. And I think maybe one reason the difference between what is going in there now and what we had, maybe they had loyalty, yeah, but it was we had a different kind of loyalty, because we was raised to do as we were told, and only as we were told, and when we were told to do it. We didn't question it, and so I guess maybe that training we had at home helped us quite a bit out.
Did you learn to drink any alcohol?
No, I didn't. Well, one time I got drunk, and that was it. I was sick for 3 days, and that was it.
Was there a fleet of boats, or?
Yeah, what?
A fleet.
We used to say fleet.
Mm-hmm. So you were in a fleet?
Well, we were what you call the Dungaree Navy. I think Everett mentioned that. Everett Ellis and I was kidding him one day about knowing what life was like aboard a ship, and he said, you can't tell me anything about it because I was aboard a small ship. So it was quite different. On a large ship you could walk around, you had convenience, you had movies, you went to the movies, you had a library, you could go to the library, and you had freshwater showers aboard small ships. If you had to stay out for 5 or 6 days, you took your showers in salt water. They just enough drinking water and using water aboard the ship to drink, and for the cooks to wash the dishes with. You didn't have the life like you had on a big ship.
Mm-hmm.
It was rough and tumble and tough going sometimes. And then the waves, sometimes you could stand in a crow's nest and reach down and hit the bottom of the waves when the ship rolled over. So it's quite a bit of difference. No, I don't, as the first fear, no, I really don't think anybody really feared. I think you see it in the movie once in a while, but I think they had ways to instill so much confidence within ourselves that we were almost like God.
Mhm. Did you get a chance to stop at ports?
Get a chance to what?
Stop at the ports? I mean, you know.
Oh yeah, we was stopped at Cologne and Balboa, and we would go up to New York, and we had a lot of fun in New York. We'd be tanned to beat everything, and we'd go up there in the wintertime and we'd be tanned, and our legs used to be as white as sheets, and it wouldn't take them long to know that came in from the south. And we'd go back up around through the Gulf of Mexico up in the Galveston, pick up a load of tankers and take them down to Panama. And yes, we hit about all the ports on the sea coast. And we I went through the locks about 3 or 4 times. I stood on the locks. I stood on the dock in Panama when my kid brother came through on a minesweeper to go out into China waters. And he didn't get a chance to make sure, and they didn't stop, and we didn't really see each other. So I never met anybody that was, from the time we left boot camp until I came back home, I never met anybody from West Virginia. They were all from New York, and we were some swell shipmates. I have no question about that.
When you went through the locks in Panama,
Oh yeah, about 3.
what was there a lot of difference from the Atlantic to the Pacific?
No, well, not really. I mean, the freshwater we went through, when you go through the locks, you go through freshwater and you go over, and of course we had water pipes in because it was freshwater, and we'd hook up the bilge pumps and spray freshwater on the deck and on each other, and it was nice and warm. It was interesting. And one thing was peculiar about it, we couldn't even write home and mention anything in our letters. They'd cut it out. But they put out a pamphlet down there that told how long it took the locks to fill, how much water they had, how long they had to wait before it filled in. But we couldn't even mention Panama in our letters at home. So then sometimes they'd get letters at home that wouldn't be nothing there but dear whoever and goodbye honey. They'd cut it all out. So, and the incoming mail, I didn't mind them going out, but I didn't want them cutting on the incoming mail, and they would. Anything that they thought would upset you, and I don't think they had that right, but they took it. They would cut it out.
They didn't want you to worry about what was going on at home. Yeah.
Change your mind from the way they want you to talk, and the way they were trying to teach you to think, then it was no go. They cut it out.
When you got on the Pacific side, did go around much on the Pacific?
No, we didn't. We go over Balboa, I think Balboa, Cologne, which is on the Pacific side. Balboa. We go into Balboa and we get liberty there, yes. And well, one interesting thing, I'll back up. One interesting thing, we taught seamanship to one of the president's sons in Miami. We was on subchasers there, and they were training school, teaching them sea duty, and we taught seamanship to them. And we escorted the Duke and Duchess of Windsor back to the Bohemians one time. And just little things like that. And during that run, our commander challenged an English cruiser. I thought, boy, you pull upside that thing and just look like looking upside one of them skyscrapers in New York City. And I think, boy, what's he doing that for? But you didn't ask questions. You just do as you was told and went back to bed whenever they said you could get.
Whereabouts were you when the war ended and you heard the news that the war was over?
It was a Sunday morning. I went down to Milan. I was working at Glenn R. Martin's, and I went down either pay my rent to my landlord or something, and she told me that it had been on the radio. And that's, well, I don't know what my thoughts was. I mean, it don't really sink in till you see them in their volunteers lined up in the lines and all that. And it didn't really sink in until then, I don't think. It didn't to me anyway. And then after you've seen all this going on, then you realize that it would eventually you'd be there.
No, I'm talking about when the war was over.
Oh.
When the news come, the war was over.
I was on where was I? I was in Panama, and I was on board the ferry from one of the islands back over to the, and we got word that the war was over. So, I mean, There's one question I've always wondered, what was all those Navy guys doing in the city of New York when they announced that thing? Why would they be in New York, and why wouldn't they be out on the ships? Boy, the news people showed a bunch of them. They were more up there than there was in the sea. So I've often wondered where they came from. Or what did they ever go to sea or what? So, but that's just afterthoughts.
Mm-hmm. When you come back to here, did you come back right here to Glenville? And
Oh yes.
did you notice anything change as far as from the time you left to the time you got back?
Oh goodness, my baby sister grew up. She was a freshman in high school when I got back, and that was the most thing I noticed. You notice there's little things about home, and at that time, my mom was in New York with my baby sister, with my sister then, and there wasn't anyone at home when I came back. They were all out working in the defense factory. Then my other brothers, by the way, there were 5 other brothers in the service besides me. There were 6 of all of us, and I think Mom's prayers brought us all back safe and sound. Now there's only one of them. There's just 2 of us living now, and my sister. Out of the 10 children, there's just 3 of us still living.
Are you going to have a garden this year?
Well, I put out my onions and the water got over them already, so. Oh yeah, me and Jack will have to think of something.
Well, was there a change as far as the material, like wash machines? Did people have more appliances, refrigerators, or were they still delivering the ice in the ice truck? Or?
Oh Lord, yes. We had, when we were down on the farm, we didn't have, you cooled things in the spring, or you put them down in the well in a bucket and cooled them. And in the 4th of July, you'd buy a watermelon and they'd keep it in the well overnight, and then you go up out in the woods someplace on a big picnic and have a big picnic. And things like, when we were kids, things like that you look forward to. And of course, Mom would always bake a cake, and that was one thing you always wanted the holidays, because you always knew that Mom would have a cake for that holiday. And then when we came back, yeah, they had television and radios and refrigerators and electrical fans, and I don't know. You know more about that.
How about the automobile?
Huh? How
about the automobile?
Well, they had automobiles before I went. Of course, Bill Hall had one little old 36 model that would pull that hill down there on high gear. He started at the bottom and come right up Courthouse Hill, and he's the only one. It was the only one that I knew around there was doing it. Then when we came back, a couple of boys had an old LaSalle, and that big hill over on the King Hill, they could pull that thing. And when we were kids, they had Model T Fords. Because I know 3 of my brothers was riding the running board, and they fell off backwards and knocked the hair out of them, but it didn't hurt them. So yeah, there was big changes. And of course, then we came back, and it takes quite a while to settle down. I mean, you just got to be on the move all the time, because you've been used to being so close and so many people around you that if it doesn't happen, then you're lost. You just can't sit still. You just got to move. And I remember one night after I was married, I woke up, my wife was screaming, and she said I had my hands around her neck trying to choke her. So you didn't really think too much about sleeping too much with me then from then on, but she finally adjusted to it. It's hard to adjust back after. I was in there for 4 years, and I mean, and we had these waxing ways and spars, but they were not board ships. They were all shore. They all had shore duties. The only time we ever seen one is when one of the officers would bring one aboard to show her off or something. but we were not allowed to date them. And of course, I don't think we wondered it would have made any difference to us. We didn't.
You think you've seen the younger generation change much since you grew up?
Yes, I absolutely do. I mean, they're more or less, we were more or less destined to the thing where if they said, you do it, you didn't question it, you did it, period. That was it, that was the law. Now, I think they can argue a lot, and they get their way a lot by arguing and crying and letting on like they're hurt, and the people and the parents are mean to them, but I don't buy that. The parents, the only reason the parents do is to keep them out of the trouble, and they get in trouble anyway. So, and we, as far as murder, we had as many murders then as we did, as they do now. There's just more people, and just more people. There are more people to kill more people than there was then, and that's why I believe that there were more murders now than there were then. But people go off all over the world. That's the common sense. So I've been retired for what, 18 years now, and I'm drawing pretty heavy on my Social Security, and I'm getting a lot of it back that they took away from me when I was a kid.
Did you say what year you were born?
I was born 1920, September 12th, and about 3/4 of a mile down the road from the stoplight. And I've lived here all my life, and I've enjoyed it. I think I've probably been about, I'd say 42 West Virginia, were the states in the United States, and I've never found any place any better, and I like better than I do West Virginia. I'm a West Virginia hillbilly and Orange hillbilly. By the way, there's one more little thing. I got in some trouble aboard the ship, and the captain brought me in a subchaser. The captain told me that I was being detached. They assembled my gear. I was being detached, and I said, "Look, Buster, I'm from the hills, and I'm a hillbilly. And if you want me to understand what you mean, you better tell me in plain damn English why you want." And he said, "Get your damn duds together. I'm transferring your rear end to shore." That was plain English. Well, I didn't like him, and he didn't like me. I lasted, I don't know, maybe I lasted about 2 months aboard his ship. And that we was doing, we teaching all these big rigs seamanship, and he thought he was a big ape, and he didn't want anything that he didn't approve to go on, because he wanted to give them the impression that he was master of that ship, and I didn't like him. And of course, then there were some officers that was good. They get the people that was riding in, the captain would say, "Now look, those people will save your life one of these days, and you better make damn sure that you want to save your life, because maybe it'll come to the time that they don't care whether you live or die, and you'll die." And they shape up pretty quick. Now all they have to do is tell them, and they shape up.
Before you went to the war, you had movie theaters, right?
Yeah, we had movies.
Did they have war movies?
I think. We had Gone with the Wind. That was one of the big movies at the time. And you know, we mostly had Tom Mix and Tex Ritter and William Boyd and what other one?
Hopalong Cassidy.
Hopalong Cassidy. Well, and then most of the restaurants. They had most of the restaurants on a Saturday afternoon. And of course, then the Lyric Theater started, and he came in with I think the Gone with the Wind, I think, was down to the Lyric Theater, and I think it was the matinees, and he let us have it go for 75 cents in one afternoon. And I think I was in a ninth, I think I was in the freshman that year. And we went to the movie that year down at the Lyric Theater for 75 cents in that afternoon. Another good movie was a Western. We enjoyed the Westerns, and we tried to impersonate or imitate those boys. And I remember we had 2 ponies, and my brother, we was riding back and forth up through the bottom. My brother jumped off of one pony and knocked me on the ground and knocked the breath out of me, and I thought I never would catch it. So we didn't try to bring anybody off the pony after that. Well, no, life then was, I don't know whether life was hard. You learn to adjust to whatever life hands. If you don't, to survive you have to adjust. If you don't adjust, then you don't survive. That's my method. And if you can't adjust, then you don't last long.
Good.
No, okay, well, I appreciate it.